And we're live.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are, whatever time it is for you right now. Just know that you are locked in on To The Point with
Skip.
and the King. You guys know where to find us by now. Oh man, Skip. It's getting
Yeah.
crazy in the NBA world, my friend. I saw you guys online. I seen the chatter. I seen the buzz. I heard a little something, something, especially after Philadelphia getting knocked out of the playoffs, which, by the way, was our pick. Wow. Do you guys really think that, Skip, I got to ask you this. Do you really think they can get rid of the engine, the heart, and the soul of the Toronto Raptors, that t shirt that you are wearing right now, in a trade for Ben Simmons?
Well, I think it's kind of interesting. So obviously, the shirt you're talking about, that's Kyle Lowry. I think there's been a lot of talk about Lowry to Philly for years now. Even in the going back to the trade deadline, and now the with the Sixers flaming out of the playoffs like they did, there's a lot of heat coming down on Simmons. There's a lot of talk that he's on his way out of Philly, and you kind of look at it and you kind of want to put the pieces together. Now, that said, it's going to be a little bit complicated because obviously Lowry's a free agent. So any deal that they work out is going to have to be a sign and trade, which obviously adds new complications. So there's some salary cap stuff where if you sign and trade a guy, it affects the other team's salary cap. It makes them hard capped, I think. Not exactly sure what that means, but it means that it really reduces their flexibility if they go out and they get Lowry. So that's one reason why Philly might hesitate to do this deal. There's also the question of whether the Raptors will be signing Lowry or whether he would want to go out on his own and not do a sign and trade deal. So there's a lot of ramifications there. But at the same time, if Philly does want to go out and get Lowry, they don't have the cap space to do it. So they have to do it through some kind of sign and trade. And that's where you kind of say, yeah, so Simmons is sort of the obvious candidate. Like we all know, struggled in the playoffs this year. Only scored 10 points a game. His numbers in the second round loss to the Hawks were 10 points a game, around 6 rebounds a game, 8.5 assists per game, which doesn't sound too bad. It's pretty close.
He went perfect in the fourth quarter.
But people are just going to come down to he doesn't take shots, he defers, he disappears for long stretches of games. And I think, frankly, the Sixers are fed up with it. It's been years now that this has been happening to them in the playoffs, and they need to try something new. And I think what they're going to need to do is they're going to need to look at, can we move Simmons for a real point guard, a true point guard, a guy who can run the offense? And that's where you get to number 7 from your city to North Philly, from North Philly to your city, Kyle Lowry. And
in the words of Mark Strong, shout out.
In the words of Mark Strong. So, yeah, I think there's a few reasons why both teams would look at this. I think for the Raptors, honestly, Lowry is 35. He's getting too old for this core. They're probably not looking at winning a title next year, even if they bring him back. So they're going to be looking at ways to move on and get younger. And Ben Simmons, he's 24 years old. He's a ferocious defender, an all-world defender. And can you just stop for a minute and imagine what this defense would look like with Ben Simmons? You've already got OG Anunoby. You've got Pascal, who's a solid defender. You got Van Vliet, who might be one of the elite point guard defenders in the league. So that's 4 really, really great defenders. I imagine them putting Simmons at the 5, maybe some small ball 4 with like maybe OG at the 5 or a Kem Birch at the 5. But he's basically
I was about to say that, yeah.
He's basically a big man. And so you basically have this offense or this defense, that doesn't allow anybody to score on them. And every single possession is going to be a fast break. That team can run like crazy, like no other team can run. I think they would be one of the most exciting defensive teams in the league. And their entire core would be under 26 years old at that point. So I think there's a lot of reasons why the Raptors should look into this kind of a trade. This makes a lot of sense.
So I love your positivity towards this, and you did make a great point there about the defense and the stretching the floor and the running and him being young. Now, in order to get Ben Simmons, Do you have any proposed trades?
Well, I
Do you have
mean,
a proposed trade?
I think from the Raptors' perspective, they would want to keep it as straight up as possible, like kind of just get Lowry to do that sign and trade deal and trade him straight up for Simmons. Maybe throw in like a little piece, like I'm thinking like a Boucher or a Malachi Flynn, maybe a 2-for-1, maybe something like that. Pretty basic. That's kind of what I think the Raptors would be going into it offering. I think they're going to go in. They're going to say, "Do you want to do this straight up?" But the question is, does Philly take that? And I'm not
If
sure
I
that
was
they do.
Daryl Morey, I would say hell no. Give
Exactly.
me a better proposition, Skip. Give me a better one. Give all of us a better one. I want to hear this because I think I know where you might be going with this one, but I want to hear it.
Okay, well,
It's going to hurt you Raptors fans.
Everyone watched the draft lottery a couple days ago. We know that the Raptors moved up. They do have that number 4 pick. They can dangle that pick in any kind of trade. And Bobby Webster even came out and said, we'd love to make that pick, but we are open to listening. So I think Philly's going to come and they're going to say, you want Ben Simmons, you got to give us that number 4 pick. And that changes the game because is it Lowry and a number 4? Is it just the number 4? So I put my head together and I played around with the ESPN trade machine, and I came up with a pretty big trade, which would be Lowry and the number 4 pick for Simmons, Matisse Thybulle, and then
Ooh.
I think the question is, what else do Philly have to throw in, right? Because I think the number 4 pick is a really big asset. So you could say maybe they throw in a lottery protected first rounder in the future. Maybe they throw in their pick this year, but I mean, their pick this year is like 28th or something.
Yeah, it's a late first rounder. Yeah.
So maybe they throw in Tyrese Maxey. Maybe they throw in 2 of those pieces. Maybe it's Simmons, Thybulle, Maxey, and that 29th overall pick. That's an interesting package, I think, for both teams, because you look at it and Philly, they get their point guard, but they also get an elite prospect. They get one of the best prospects in the drafts this year. And that could convince them to be like, okay, so we're going to get older from Simmons, but we're going to have that next wave of talent coming in. We're going to have someone to replace the guys that came out in, a Jalen Suggs or a Jalen Green or whoever goes with that pick. So There's a lot of reasons for Philly to take that trade, I think. It does hurt their defense. It does sort of hurt their depth a little bit. But they got to go in. They got to say, we're winning now. We're moving on from Simmons. I think that's a really exciting trade. If you're a Philly fan, you can say we got the best player in the deal and the best prospect, which that's a really hard thing to do in a trade. So I think from Philly's perspective, they'd be intrigued by that offer. It probably feels like a lot of depth for them to give up. Like there's a lot of guys who don't want to give up Thybulle and Maxey, but I think if you're getting the 4th overall pick, you got to throw everything at it. Now, from the Raptors' perspective, I think it's really expensive. It's a lot to give up that number 4 pick. But if you look at the guys you're getting back, suddenly, remember what I just said about that amazing defense. You throw Thybulle in there as like the 2 guard, that no one would score on that team. Like that would be that team would lead the league in defense every year. And then
that's all defense.
Yeah, and you could have like a Gary Trent, a Malachi coming off the bench. Obviously, whoever you draft with that pick, or Maxey coming off the bench. So I think that would be pretty interesting from the Raptors' perspective. I still think they'd have to think really hard about whether they want to move that number 4 pick and whether they want to bank on Simmons not having a jump shot, learning a jump shot, whether they're fine with him just being a dunker for the rest of his career. Because the other aspect of this is Simmons has a really big contract. So if you're bringing in a $30 million player, that's limiting your flexibility down the road. So is that the team you want to roll forward with? And I think, it's a pretty darn good team. Like I think they make the playoffs of that team next year. I think they're young. They can grow. They can let OG have some reps. Let Siakam develop even further. Let those guys grow into themselves and see what that team is capable of. And I think that would be really interesting to see. So I don't know. What do you think about that trade?
No.
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 Insightful analysis.
No. Very insightful. And let's dig deeper. let's go deeper into this rabbit hole. Okay, Kyle Lowry, we've said this before. Well, I've said it before on To The Point. He is the heart and soul. He is the engine that is running the team. He is the doctor. He is the coach on the sidelines. He's the backbone, the spine for the guys in the locker room. I don't get it twisted. I wouldn't mind him going home to send off his career, let him run on to the sunset. That would be cool for him because we have nothing but the most respect for him. But at the same time, Ben Simmons, let's see, clutch free throws in the playoffs, fourth quarter, showing up, deferring.
34% free throw percentage. That hurts in the playoffs this year. Yeah.
Right? He's not your closer at that point. Siakam is. I do agree with you on him and Siakam, OG or Boucher, Van Vliet. I do agree with you. I would love to see that because I'm a defense first kind of guy as opposed to offense. But no.
Yeah.
No, I don't agree with it. Because you know what? You never know what this could come up with. The 4th overall pick for your Toronto Raptors.
I 100% agree.
You never know what could happen.
That 4th overall pick could be better than Ben Simmons on his own. And then why are you making this trade? So, yeah, there's that.
Exactly. If you guys ever feel useless, just know that Ben Simmons uses a shooting sleeve.
Simmons is still a really good player. He's still a really good player.
He is a good player. He is a very good player, right? I would have taken him over Malachi Flynn anyway.
Even in that playoff game where everyone was killing him in that game 7, there was a stretch in the third quarter where I saw him take over that game in his way. It's just a little bit of a quieter way where he's getting turnovers. He's sort of running fast breaks, like stuff that doesn't really show up on the box score quite as much. Doesn't show up on the highlight reels quite as much. But he can turn a game without shooting. It's just that it doesn't feel the same as a guy who's going in there and draining like pull-up jumpers. Like it just doesn't.
He has that Kardashian curse. Now, with saying that, I don't want him here in Toronto. There's multiple destinations that are out there that he can also go to as well. Now, Skip, I got a crazy one for you.
Okay, hit me.
Golden State. They have the 7th and 14th overall pick of the first round after your Raptors number 4.
Okay, but who's matching?
That's a possibility.
But who are they sending out to match the salary?
Wiggins.
Yeah, I don't think Philly would do that.
I doubt that too.
Yeah.
But that's a crazy one that's out there. Do you have any other possible destinations if he doesn't come here to T.O.
Well, I ran a couple of the more commonly suggested ones through the trade simulator. So obviously the big name out there the big team out there is Portland. And
CJ McCollum?
CJ McCollum is sort of the obvious one where it would just be kind of a straight up trade. Maybe someone throws a pick in there somewhere, but I think they're pretty close in value at this point. I'm not even sure who would be throwing in the pick because Portland needs a change. Philly needs a change. The more interesting one is if Philly wants to go all in for Dame, which I don't know if Portland would ever pull the trigger on. But at that point, I ran that through the simulator and it's the same thing. Like Philly would have to throw in Maxey, Tybal, all their first round picks. And I still don't even know if Portland is interested. But that's a really interesting one. I think that's what Philly is really looking to do is to get a guy like Dame to pair with Embiid. I think that would be their dream scenario. I just don't know if Portland would ever even consider an offer, no matter how good it is. Then I looked
Is there another team?
Yeah, so I looked at, Chicago is a big name. A lot of people are talking about Levine for Simmons. That's actually a little bit tough to work out the salaries. Like, they're not too far apart, but Chicago has to throw in another piece, and then Philly's got to throw in some picks. And yeah, I came up with a couple scenarios with Chicago, but I actually didn't like that trade as much as I thought I would. An interesting one is OKC, because OKC just traded for Kemba as a salary dump. And the question is, would they be willing to move Kemba for would they be willing to move draft picks to upgrade from Kemba to Simmons and sort of push their timeline along a little bit, because they're just hoarding draft picks as it is, and they've got
Oh
too
my
many, to
goodness.
be honest. So if they could throw in like some first rounders, no problem, to get Simmons, if they think that he can fit into that window with Shai and some other guys that are coming up right now. That's sort
Yeah.
of a weird one. I don't really see that one working because Kemba probably isn't quite the piece that Philly's looking for, because he's injury prone and struggled the past couple of years. But maybe there's a little something they could work out there. And then my kind of off the board one is the Pelicans.
Uh-oh.
Pelicans.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
with all that Zion thing going on. Oh my goodness, yes.
Oh no, I'm not saying for Zion. Zion would be interesting.
Who would you think they would trade him for?
I'm thinking Lonzo Ball. So I'm thinking even that trade's a little tough to work out because you got to throw in another piece to make the salaries match. So I was thinking Simmons for Lonzo Ball and Bledsoe, and that way Philly gets 2 point guards out of the deal. They'd probably have to throw in another piece like a Tybal or a Maxey, but that one's a little interesting. I don't know if it really works.
That is interesting because I heard Bledsoe might be leaving.
Yeah, well, I think
he's on his way up.
I think it just kind of works for both teams, but I'm not totally convinced because Simmons and Zion is kind of a weird fit. And I don't know, Philly going up to having too many point guards after not having enough. That'd be interesting. I don't know if they value Lonzo enough, but I think that's a pretty interesting offer. Anyway, if you guys have any ideas, throw them out in the comments section. I'm just spitballing some stuff here. As we know, the real trades that go down are not usually the ones that you throw in through the simulator, but it's always nice to think about possibilities, places he could go. Yeah, opportunities. What could happen with Ben Simmons?
And what could it do for your Toronto Raptors?
Yeah, and I think the Raptors should at least be making calls and seeing what Philly wants. And if they don't want to pull the trigger on that big deal, I understand it. But if they do, like, there's a lot of reasons to like it. So yeah.
Yeah, guys, like Skip just said, more importantly, what we got to say is what you guys got to say. So you guys let us know. We've seen you guys out there online. We've heard a lot of your comments since this has become a rumor. So you guys let us know. Go down there, click subscribe, click like, share your comments. Please engage with us. You guys know where to find us. To the Point, Facebook, Instagram, To the Point Raps on Twitter, youtube.com/To the Point Podcast. You guys know where to find Simon out there, simonbroder.com, amazon.ca. Go buy that book. So guys, after all of that said, and we just stirred the pot a little bit, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, good night, and
peace.